There's nothing more exciting than finally getting out on your own and getting your very first checking account. Unfortunately, for many young adults as well as old adults, they don't know how to write a check. So today I'm going to introduce you to some basic steps on how to write a check, the parts of a check, and how to void a check when necessary. To begin with, the First National Bank of Miami provided a simple diagram of the important parts of a check. To begin with, every check includes your name on there, along with your address and city and state as well. Some people are going as far as including their driver's license on there because so many merchants request to see your driver's license or some type of ID. So you can go ahead and pre-print them on there and save the time and hassle of showing your check or your ID, But some people still request it for identification purposes. Some people also go as far as including their telephone number right under there as well for contact information. For example, maybe your check doesn't go through, it bounces, so they've got your information at hand. Next would be your check number. These are already pre-printed on your checks, so you don't have to worry about, am I on check 102 or 103 or whatnot. They're already done in chronological order for you. Next would be your date line on there to include your date. The fourth thing would be your pay to the order of line or payable to line. This is where you would write who you're making the check payable to. For example, Target or your little sister giving her $10 to go to the movies or something. Of course, I would only get the ticket. No other extra spending money. Next would be your amount box. This is where you would write the amount you're going to issue the check for. Next is another amount line, and this is where you write out your amount in letter form. The next thing is your bank logo. A lot of banks include their logos on there, whether it be your First Bank of Trust or First National Bank, Regions Bank, whatnot. They all include their little logos on there. The next item is your memo line. This is to remind you of what you used your money on what purchase you used it for. And next, you always wonder what those little numbers are all across the bottom of your check. Well, here they are. They include your account number as well as your bank's wiring number. And finally is your signature line. So let's move right along and begin to write a check just for visual purposes. So we start off with our date. Today is Monday, April the 13th of 2009. So we write it on there, and you can write it out in just number form, or you can spell out your month or write out the whole year. Some checks already have, the year printed out on there, so you don't have to worry about the year. And the next would be who we're making our check payable to. So, for example, I'm going to make a check out to Target. So I just simply write in there, Target. And you can print or you can use cursive, just as long as you make it legible, because some people have ridiculous handwriting. Next, we would write out our amount. I, for example, am going to make one for $45.60. So you just write that out in the numerical form there. And next, we have to write it out in letter form, and spell everything out. One of the biggest mistakes people make is spelling. Like, for example, on 40, you would not spell F-O-U-R-T-Y. That's incorrect grammar. Instead, you'd spell F-O-R-T-Y, and that would be 40. So always be careful on how to spell. So here we go. 45. And the tricky part would be your change amount. So it's always best to just write your change, for example, 60 cents, 60 over 100 in a fraction form. And then we have some space left over. Somebody can go in there and forge your check and where you write a different amount. So what you want to do is make a line so no one else can get to it. Next, let's put in our memo line on there and what we used our purchase on. I, for example, bought milk and bread, so I just put something simple like groceries. And that's just for something to remind me later in the future, you know, what did I write this check for? And finally, before you hand it over to the teller, you sign off on it. And that's it. Those are simple steps, yet many people fail to do this. And luckily nowadays, many merchants provide automatic printing. So they've got them ready for you and you don't have to worry about typing them or writing them out. And finally, we're going to go through how to void a check. Sometimes you have to void a check because you wrote an amount or something on there, and the best way to void a check is to write void on there 4 different times. First, you would start off with a void in your amount box and just simply write the word out in big letters. And next would be on your signature line. So you write it on there too. And finally, largely across the whole check. And an even further security measure is to write it out on the back of the check so no one can go and endorse it. And this is all provided to us by ehow.com. And the best measure is to shred the check or tear it up into small pieces. And just chunk it. And so these are just some simple steps on how to write a check, introduce you to a check, and how to void a check. So hopefully this is helpful to people out in the long run and it can simplify the writing of a check. So thank you for joining us today.